Thank you for joining us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. Nigeria is home to a vast wildlife trade. A wide array of animals, including endangered apes and pangolins, are hunted to feed both domestic and international demand for bushmeat and body parts. Helped by an ungoverned forest, poaching, and trafficking, wildlife crimes have intensified the conflict between wildlife and people as they compete for land and resources. With pressure on the country's biodiversity so great, easing up on conservation measures we've been told can be costly. So what's the way forward, and can we even get it right? We'll look at these and many more on today's episode of Earthfile. Do stay with us. Relaxing evening with friendly acquaintances and colleagues, food and drinks, as well as interaction with wildlife.
They are covered on the backside entirely with scales.
Mark Ofwa, ever the wildlife enthusiast on a mission to change perceptions towards wildlife, joined other conservationists, diplomats, and government officials at the first Friends of Nigeria Wildlife reception hosted recently by the British Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos. The British High Commission and the Deputy High Commission hope the event will help foster more coordination to help promote Nigeria's amazing wildlife and put more of a spotlight on the illegal wildlife trade in the country.
Nigeria is perhaps less known for its wildlife than traditional countries like Kenya and Zimbabwe, both countries I've been posted in. But you have amazing wildlife. You have forest elephants, you have amazing chimpanzees and many other species, including pangolins, a very rare species. So what we've been trying to do tonight is to bring together the people who work at the really grassroots level to conserve these amazing species on the ground, with people who work on the law enforcement side to stop the illegal wildlife trade in things like pangolin scales, turtle meat, bush meat more generally, and also people who work on the communication side to kind of promote and advocate for change. And of course us as the diplomats, the least important people here tonight, but three countries in particular are working together on this. The UK, who've hosted tonight, our colleagues from the US Embassy and the German embassies. So we're here to launch the Friends of Nigeria Wildlife and to try and come together to make a real difference in terms of conserving Nigeria's biodiversity and wildlife.
The United Nations Office on Drug and Crime's World Wildlife Crime Report 2020 found that in 2019 alone, at least 51 tons of pangolin scales seized globally originated from Nigerian ports, compared to only 2 tons in 2015. More than half of all seizures of pangolin scales worldwide could be traced back to Nigeria in 2019. Data further suggests an increasing role of Nigeria in the illicit ivory trade. Despite a global decline in trafficking in ivory since 2011, Nigeria has been identified in a growing number of incidents as part of the illegal trade chain. The seizure at the Apapa port in January this year by the Nigeria Customs Service of 20-foot container containing the remains of various endangered species further highlights and buttresses the findings in the World Wildlife Crime Report 2020. The container included 2,772 pieces of elephant tusks of different shapes weighing about 4,752 kilograms, 162 sacks of pangolin scales weighing 5,329 kilograms, 5 kilograms of rhino horns, dried and fresh animal bones, 103 kilograms of skulls suspected to be of lions and other wild caught, and 76 pieces of timber, semi-processed and processed.
I do want to emphasise how important that seizure was. It's really focused a diplomatic spotlight. It's enabled me to get the attention of my headquarters, and I think similarly for the US and Germany, how important Nigeria is in this trade, that it's a transit point, and therefore we can't tackle illegal wildlife trade unless we're tackling the seizures at the ports. And of course, for the UK, as you all know, we're hosting COP26 in Glasgow, and we are doing it in person, I'm pleased to say, in Glasgow. And we have three big themes there. Obviously, mitigation on the, just try and encourage people to get onto a net zero pathway. Adaptation to prepare for inevitable climate change. But thirdly, and I think relevant tonight, nature-based solutions, which is all about recognizing Nigeria is a perfect case study. 2/3 of Nigeria's emissions of carbon come from deforestation and unsustainable land use. That means that you're not only emitting that carbon, but you're also cutting down the trees to do so. You're therefore reducing your biodiversity.
2020 was billed as a super year of climate, biodiversity and sustainable development meetings in which the international community had great plans to take the reins of the Anthropocene. The COVID-19 pandemic has meant that most of these conferences are now scheduled for 2021 and has provided a stark reminder of how nature and humans are intertwined.
For too long, it had been in pockets and silos of conversation, but we really need to open up that space. More awareness and advocacy needs to go out, and people need to know the impact of, illegal wildlife trading and all of the ills that are happening to our wildlife in Nigeria. And most people would say, the reason why people would kill a rare species is because they need food. However, with more awareness, more people can start to learn about the importance of this rare species to our ecosystem in particular. And then, of course, while government is pushing for wildlife conservation, we're also driving for a larger sustainable development system where issues around food security are addressed at the same time, climate action. So it really needs to be a balance where we're looking at sustainable development as places where the planet and people prosper at the same time. So indeed, initiatives like this are really, really sustainable. They're important to have, old and young, high-level people coming together to talk about this issue.
Biodiversity loss threatens food security, and urgent action is needed to address the loss of the biodiversity that feeds the world. Where and how we produce food is one of the biggest human-caused threats to nature and our ecosystems, making the transformation of our global food system more important than ever. The transformation of our economic systems is also critical. Our economies are embedded within nature, and it is only by recognizing and acting on this reality that we can protect and enhance biodiversity and improve our economic prosperity.
The reality is, if we continue this way, we shall approach an unstoppable circumstance, and it shall become totally catastrophic. Okay? Prince Charles, who I had the privilege of meeting right here, in his words, he summed it up. He said, if we continue like this, we shall be bequeathing. No, sorry, his accent was a little bit different. He said, but if we continue like this, we shall be bequeathing unto our children a poisoned chalice. So on a final note, I want to ask you, is this the legacy that you want to hand on to your children, a poisoned chalice? No. I'm sorry, that no wasn't very resounding. Is this the legacy? No. There's hope, but guess what? Action speaks louder. Dr. Mark?
A ball python and a pangolin are some of the animals that Nigerian veterinarian and conservationist Mark Ofua is nursing back to health at his animal sanctuary in Lagos. Mark says he is determined to change perceptions here towards reptiles and wild animals and wants to get communities to do more to care for wildlife.
No, not you.
The vet has been saving and treating wild animals and reptiles for about 10 years now. The rescued animals often end up here after being injured by hunters or through accident. Others are attacked by people trying to protect themselves. Mark runs a rehabilitation center which also serves as a clinic for pet owners. Over 30 different animals are housed here, from pangolins to civets, baboons, turtles and even stray dogs. He places domestic animals up for adoption and returns wildlife to protected forests once they are rehabilitated. Mark also goes around schools sensitizing students on the need to protect wildlife. He encourages people to contact him whenever they come across snakes and other dangerous animals instead of attacking them.
Basically, is rescue these poor creatures that would otherwise have been food on the bushmeat table, rehabilitate them, and release back to the wild. Release is our watchword. And in the course of my work, I have I diverted into the pangolins, and the situation for pangolins is very dire. We hear of seizures. Let me give you a quick ratio for calculation. Scale to body weight is about 1 to 4. So when you hear a ton of pangolin scales was seized, multiplied by 4. So you have 4,000 dead pangolins. So when you hear of 20 tons, you begin to shake, and all from around us here. The situation is very dire, and we are doing the little we can in trying to pluck these pangolins from the bushmeat trade to rehabilitate and release.
Chinedu Mogbo, founder of Green Fingers Wildlife Conservation Initiative, a wildlife sanctuary, is at the Ekpe market to see what wildlife he can take off the sellers. After about an hour of haggling, he's able to pay and secure the safety of just one of the pangolins. He hopes to encourage Nigerians to cut bushmeat consumption and avoid animal-based traditional medicine, which can fuel the unhygienic animal handling that can aid virus transmission. But he has to do this by paying for the animals. Chinedu says paying to save these animals is not the best option, but it remains all he can do until there is a proper education.
It is not the right thing, because I know that it will still encourage them to keep getting more of these things, because they feel somebody is doing something, is taking them off them, and they are benefiting of these things. However, I know that even if I were to reject them or let them go, our country is not a place where the people are educated enough to know that these things should not be encouraged.
He buys these animals and gives them a new lease to life, by either bringing them to his animal sanctuary or keeping them for a while to heal before releasing them back into the wild. He says apart from going to these wet markets to buy off the animals, he gets called as many as 15 times a day from people who are about to witness the killing of a wildlife, either for food or for traditional medicine purposes.
Non-venomous.
Chinedu is one of the friends of Nigeria Wildlife who joined the reception in Lagos.
We observe the problems basically we have with wildlife here in Lagos, especially in this city. We have quite a few wet markets, traditional markets scattered all over the place, and it's been in existence as far as I can remember when I was 10. That was when I first made my trip there, in the case of getting a pet or so. But over the years, coming back there, seeing that the same establishment still exists amidst the clamor, amidst the noise, amidst the contemplations for ceasefire when it comes to wildlife. So we decided to take it up to the next level. All right, on a small piece of space there, we started getting these animals, rescuing them from this market. Dr. Mark, a wonderful vet, works with us also, and he also sometimes looks through these animals and ensure that they are fit. So the animals that are not able to go back into the wild, unfortunately some of them are like that. They have permanent homes within the sanctuary. Animals that have been hand-raised, bottle-fed, will find it difficult to exist in the Nigerian wild, because every human is a potential threat to any animal, basically. And with our work on pangolins also, and it's pitiable that in Nigeria we only wait till we confiscate tons of scales before something is even done. And even while it's being confiscated, we still have the market still flooded with pangolins on a daily basis. I mean, it's so overwhelming that we cannot even keep up with the problems, with the challenges we face. Now, what happens here is that we do our best as much as we can with the help and support from people around. We get them, they go through rehab, few days, then they go back into protected spaces because it's quite a delicate species, working with the pangolins.
The World Wildlife Fund said the pandemic should be a wake-up call. But the booming trade at Ekpe illustrates unchanged attitudes despite the death of more than 4 million people worldwide by the coronavirus disease.
But in Nigeria, it's basically poaching.
Meanwhile, Friends of Nigeria's Wildlife gathered here are hoping to support one another by amplifying successes and ideas. Faced with enormous threats, including hunting for bushmeat, wildlife species in Nigeria have declined dramatically over the past 50 years.
The Wildlife Conservation Society focuses on saving endangered species and wild areas. We focus on saving the crossover gorillas, Nigeria Cameroon chimpanzees, lions, and forest elephants and savanna elephants. Those are the species we focus on to save in Nigeria. We're working to save those endangered species, but also their habitat. So working very closely with the Nigerian National Park Service, working with important national parks like Cross River National Park, Yankari Game Reserve, to protect the habitat for these rare species, which also by protecting the habitat, the forest, the rainforest, you're also helping to reduce the impact of climate change. There's so many Nigerians, 200 million Nigerians, a lot of forest is being cut down, there's a lot of logging, there's a lot of unemployment and poverty, there's a high demand for bushmeat. Conservation is not always given the priority it deserves by state government and even federal government. So yes, there are a lot of challenges, which is why perhaps an evening like this, bringing experts and committed stakeholders together to discuss it is very important.
Professor Adeshola Adepoju is the Director General of the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria in Ibadan. And he points out that many people are not aware of the conventions and laws protecting wildlife in the country. He's also leading efforts at the Institute to increase awareness.
We took the farmers away from using chemicals on the forest to kill the fish, establish fish pond for them, stock it, and allow them to run it to maturity. And their first net revenue was about 1.5 million. So that completely banned them or took them away from using chemical. Then why did we do cane rat? Because some of them, because of one cane rat, can set fire on hectares of land. So we also trained them on that, but we realized that that is not too right with them. Why? Because they were covetous about it and were killing the grass cutter for food, and were telling us that the grass cutters are dying. So we realized that the younger one that should be even susceptible to cold are alive, but the older ones are the ones they claim to be dying, and they couldn't show us the dead ones. So we discovered that it was dying into their pot. And so we changed that to rabbit, because rabbit is more prolific in childbirth, and so that's what is there now. So we focus the schools there with the mushroom, so that we can let the pupils and the students realize that even while in school, you can still earn a living, and that they are still running up to today in those schools. I think, and the business women there, we set them up on snary, and that's what they are still practicing up to now. And so that's how we're able to take 200 of them out of joblessness and to keep them busy.
Dr. Joy Amadi heads 9 sections of the Sustainable Forest Management Department at the Forestry Institute. Their work here is to find ways in which man can live comfortably with nature without tilting the balance of the ecosystem.
Well, with urbanization, yes, the forest will be cleared, but there's something called urban forestry. Yes, if you are able to plant trees within your compound, it will also generate the oxygen we need. So we encourage people, even if you are building, yes, try to put some stands within your compound that will encourage afforestation at the same time, and it will help the environment.
Feel it. I've supported it.
But the road to success seems long and hard. The Environmental Investigation Agency, using both publicly available data and classified information from a number of sources, reported at the end of 2020 that corruption continues to fuel illegal wildlife trade in the country. The agency says Nigeria plays a key role in the illegal wildlife trade, representing the largest export point for ivory and pangolin scales destined for consumer markets in Asia. Its research and analysis of seizure data indicates that Nigeria has been implicated in the trafficking of at least 49,983 kilograms of ivory and 161,403 kilograms of pangolin scales, the equivalent of more than 7,400 elephants and hundreds of thousands of pangolins. Although less prominent, rhino horn is also trafficked through Nigeria, and the country is linked to at least 114 kilograms of rhino horn seized elsewhere. Wildlife trafficking in Nigeria is linked to other forms of serious criminal activities, such as the illegal trade of drugs, precious stones, fraud and corruption. Nigeria has been flagged as a Category A party, the highest category of concern under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species National Ivory Action Plans.
In fact, stakeholders' engagement is a key component of our work because we cannot do any conservation effort, we cannot drive any conservation effort without the support of stakeholders, local communities and governments. And we educate the community to make them to understand that in conserving the forests, we are also conserving their livelihood, because the forest itself is not an infinite object. It's finite. It's going to finish one day. So we educate them to understand that our work is in partnership with them, is in partnership with their own interests. It takes into consideration their livelihood. It takes into consideration their interest. We also educate the government to know that there are ways to make money off the forest besides cutting the forest or deforesting or deforestation.
Nigeria developed the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan as an enabler for integrating biodiversity considerations into sectoral and cross-sectoral policies, plans and programs at all levels of government. The government also approved the new National Forest Policy in July 2020 to ensure continuous socio-economic development.
Incidentally, Mr. President,
the Minister of Environment also says the government is coordinating efforts to ensure the various regulatory and enforcement agencies and their partners can more effectively work together to combat wildlife crime.
Let me start with the word I've been using, collaboration. FRIN, the Forestry Research Institute, NASRIA, that is the National Environmental Standard and Regulation Agency, National Park, all of this are working in that direction. And that's where also the National Park and the interior come in, so that we understand that people, yes, just as people cut wood to use it for energy, a lot of people think that their only source of meat is the bush meat, and that is more of a challenge where I guess you can call it a non-point pollution, because you don't know where people will go in. Non-point source, sorry, I meant to say. People will go and catch bushmeat. So again, what we need is this collaboration. What we need is additional security. What we need is especially the national park to be strengthened, which Mr. President is very willing, so that we can safeguard the parks where a lot of the animals are that people think they are just bushmeat. But most importantly also, we have collaboration with other countries. We are just about to sign a memorandum of understanding with Cameroon in safeguarding fauna and flora, within the areas where our border crossed. Again, we are taking the same approach of collaboration, working with NGO and even with the people in the area. So it's something that, again, we intend to sustain. We will be getting some additional support from the federal government. The President is willing, and we'll make sure that helps.
Apart from crime, the increase in zoonotic diseases is boosting the call for protection of biodiversity. Majority of emerging infectious diseases in people are of animal origin, 75% of emerging zoonoses have wildlife origins. Lassa fever has killed thousands in Nigeria in recent time. COVID-19 is forcing people across the world into quarantine and taking countless lives. And in the cases of SARS, MERS, Ebola, swine flu, tuberculosis, tapeworms, avian flu, HIV, West Nile virus, and countless other diseases that have jumped from animals to humans, biodiversity and habitat loss, along with wildlife trade, are the overwhelming culprits. That is why experts are saying to put an end to the spread of zoonotic diseases, human and environment interactions must be restructured. The planet and the species who inhabit it are not resources to be endlessly exploited. Ultimately, experts say living together responsibly and compassionately promotes all forms of health, be it animal, environmental, or human. Nigeria is not only a source of wildlife product, but also a major transit country. There appears to be a geographic consolidation of trafficking routes across several markets, with Nigeria emerging as a key source or transit country for many shipments of protected species and products. According to a report of the CITES Elephant Trade Information System to COP17, Nigeria is the second most prominent ivory exporting country of West Africa, functioning as a major hub that draws in ivory from Central Africa and increasingly as far away as East Africa. Experts say Nigeria needs to strengthen her response to the trafficking of wildlife and forest products. I'm Ayola Kasim, asking you to join us for another episode of the program. But in the meantime, our inbox, Earthfile at channelstv.com is available for your comments and your questions. We'll see you next week.